Alright guys, today we are building on what we did yesterday. We're still working with rational expressions, but today we're going to multiply and divide them. Let's jump right in. First is the simple kind where you have a monomial, and we're going to multiply them. Step one, before you multiply, you divide by the common factors. So we look, are there anything on top on either side that is divisible by or has common factors with something on the bottom? We see the 3 and the 9 have something in common. For example, we know 9 is really 3 times 3. What can both be crossed out? A 3 and a 3. So now what we have is r squared x t to the 4th over 3 t to the 3rd and an r. We just multiplied. When you multiply straight across, numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. 3 was left out of the 9. We still had the t squared and the r. So I'm going to copy that down. R squared x t to the 4th over 3t to the 3rd r. Now we simplify, so we continue working our way through. What's on top that's also on bottom? We have an r and an r squared. R squared is equal to r times r. So what can I cross out between r and r? Well, I scratch out one of them, so I'm left with r. Now look at t to the 4th and t to the 3rd. T to the 4th would be like writing t times t times t times t, 4 t's. Down here I'd have 3 t's. So all 3 of the t's on bottom would be scratched out, and 3 of the top ones would be scratched out, just leaving me with 1 t left over. So it's 4 minus the 3 gives us just the t on top. Let's see if we have anything else left over. Nope. Well, x and x. Oh, that's not an x, that's an r that I've crossed out. So what does that equal to? We have an r left over on top, an x, and a t, nothing else. And on bottom we have a 3 and nothing else. So that's the simplified version of this. Multiplication means multiply straight across. Now we move into our second example where we have division. You should remember this from middle school, but if you had something like 1/3 divided by 4/5, in order to divide it, you change this to multiplication, but you have to flip the right side. So it'd be 1/3 times 5/4. You can change it from division to multiplication, but you have to take the reciprocal, flip that side. So that's middle school. Now we're moving into algebra where we've got letters. Same process applies. Step 1, change multiplication, change the division to multiplication by the reciprocal. So I'm going to write the same fraction here, 4/15 to the 3rd. That's the same one, but then this changes to multiplication because we're flipping those two sides. 12 and then 25 in. Then we do the same step we had before, divide by common factors on either side before we multiply. 12 and 15 can both be divided by what number? Divide by 3. So that means when I would divide it, I'd be left with a 4 and a 5. The other way you can think about it is 12 is the same as 4 times 3, 15 is the same as 3 times 5, and we have the 3 in common, so we're left with 5 and 4. And then we just have the 4 here. When we multiply straight across, 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 25. 5 times 25, think of quarters. 4 would be 100. A fifth one would be 125. And then we have n to the 3rd times 1 n. What's hanging up at the top of that n? A 1. So 3 plus 1 is 4. N to the 4th. And then the last step would be to simplify it. Can either 16 or 125 be divided by the same thing? And you would find your answer on through. Looking at examples 3 and 4, this is basically what we did yesterday. You should remember this from homework. On top you'd have two parentheses, two binomials that multiplied x, and then you'd ask what numbers multiply to give us that. And then you'd cross out whatever matches with the bottom, x minus 5. This, we'd pull out what they have in common, which would be an a. So you'd be left with 3a minus 2 over a, and then the a's cancel. So those examples I'm not going to spend time on doing 3 and 4. You remember that from yesterday. This is what we're moving into that you'll have questions like on the test on this week. We have a trinomial right here. You should be familiar with what the next step would be. If I ask you to factor it, you would have parentheses, what numbers multiply. We know it's x and x because x squared. What numbers multiply to give me 6 and add to give me 5. But the thing that makes this problem slightly different is they're phrasing it by saying, what is this divided by this? So it would be kind of like a problem, x squared plus 5x plus 6 and x plus 2. That's what they're asking us for. What am I going to multiply times this to get that is another way of thinking. We're not going to solve it in this format. You're just going to factor it, x squared plus 5x plus 6. You're going to factor it. You're going to end up with two parentheses, but I've already given you a hint almost. Divided by this. That means this is one of the things that you're going to multiply by to get this. So it actually is giving you help when they ask it like that. X plus 2, we can put it in the first one. Now we're basically just finding one of these, so it's even easier if these two multiply give us that. So what are the factors of 6? 1 and 6, but we know one of them's got to be 2, so let's use 2 and 3. X plus 3 must be this one. 2 times 3 is 6, 2 plus 3 is 5. That's the final answer. This divided by the other factor, it gives us this leftover part. So the final answer is x plus 3. The last example that we're going to do together, if the area of a football field is represented by this, so immediately you draw a little football field, doesn't have to be super precise, the area is equal to x squared minus 16x plus 64. That's the area. The length is x plus 8. Here's a length, x plus 8. What is the width? This is the same type of problem we just did here. They gave us this, and now they told us one of the side lengths, just like they told us on this one what it's going to be divided by. So you're going to do it the same way. Here's my x squared minus 16x plus 64, and we're going to factor it. It's going to end up having two parentheses. They'll both have x, except they told us what one of the sides was. So now I know one is x plus 8, so it makes it even easier. Well, as you can tell, it's supposed to be x minus 8. So hopefully you didn't fall for what I did. Minus 8, and that should be minus 8 over here. Minus 8. All right, so now we're thinking, what numbers multiply times 8 to give us 64? Well, that'd be another negative 8, because negative times negative gives us positive, and then negative 8 plus negative 8 gives us negative 16. That's the answer. The other length must be x minus 8. Which hopefully, if you're thinking, is not a good answer. This was a poorly constructed question because a football field is a rectangle, and if this and this is the same length, it would be a square football field. Not a very good question that I made up. All right. Anyway, that's the mathematical answer for the equations I gave. Go ahead and go to the back of this page and continue working your way through. 3 and 4 are like what we did yesterday. So are 5 and 6. Start on number 6 as you work your way for your answers. Start at 6 and go 7, 8 on the back. All right, that's all.